Okay, so screen is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so guys, today we are going to start a new tool of Microsoft Office, and that is Microsoft Access. Actually, Microsoft Access is basically used to develop an applications to develop application. But how to develop application, what is application, that is the new concept for you people, and we are going to learn, we are going to understand this concept in today's lecture. So Word, PowerPoint and Excel, these three are basically MS Office tools, and each has a unique feature, like, right, like Word we use for the word processing, PowerPoint is for the presentation, Excel is for the calculations and all. Excel is quite different from all these tools. The reason is Microsoft Access allows us to develop application or software, we can say. So now the question is, how can we develop this software using the MS Access, and what is software, right? So we'll take the example for that. Let's take an example of,
Ma'am,
yes.
I didn't understand the access thing. What is this exactly used for? Like developing app, it is isn't that coding that for app and software?
I'm explaining that concept only,
Okay.
yet I have not explained the concept. Okay, so before we start the use of MS Access, first let's understand what is software, what is application, and what type of application we can develop using the MS Access. So when it's a matter of a small industry or a small software or a small or a little requirement, better word, little requirement, or the small use, a small industry, so in short, where you have a very few things of your organization which you want to computerize, in that case we can use the MS Access. MS Access is a basic tool. Now let's understand the concept of application and the software. Everyone knows about the Facebook, right? We all know.
Yes, ma'am.
We all know about the Facebook.
Yes, ma'am.
So very first, the thing which you see on the screen when you enter the URL, here I am talking about the browser based FB, not your mobile based. So the very first page we see is login, right? Login page, and in login page we have option like ID, then password, and here you have button login. So this is the normal design, this is the standard design to get into the any application. And this thing, the organization of all these components, like this label, this we call the labels, which is giving the information, this is called the input box or the text box, this is something on which we can click, this we call the button, and all together we call GUI. GUI stands for graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. This is the GUI. GUI means the interface through which user interacts with the system, that we call the GUI. Is this clear, everyone?
Ma'am, okay.
Okay. So this is the GUI, and we call it form as well. So on form, this is your form. This is your form. On form, you have multiple components. Multiple components. Also, we call them objects. So each and every object has their own use, own feature, functionality that we will learn. But right now we are just getting familiar with all the new terms like form, GUI, objects, like that. So this is about the GUI and the components. Now what happens? Okay, now what happens, guys, when you click on the login button? When you click on the login button, after entering your ID, let's say XYZ, and some password. So, after clicking on the login, after entering the ID and password, when you click on the login button, two things happens. One, if these credentials are right, then it will take you to the next page, right? And suppose it is wrong, then it will reload the same page. होता है ऐसा?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ मैम.
Right? It means what? That this is your one form and this is your second form. Form means the interface. Like here, it's, let's say, your wall. Here, your wallpaper. What we call this? On the top of the our wall, that image. What we call? Which picture we call? Here we have a profile picture. Then
Cover photo.
cover photo. Yes, cover photo. Then you have a friend list, and then some feeds. So this is another form. So on this form you have different components. But when we say that when we enter the correct ID and password, it takes you to the next page. But before this thing, before login, suppose you don't have the ID and password, you need to register. You need to register first.
Yes,
Right?
ma'am.
Okay, so when we register ourselves to any specific application, again we have some parameters like name, then age, whatever it is, then enter your ID, then password, and all the other things. And most important thing, the submit button. So guys, what happens when you add the data, when you enter the data? Let's say name is Joy, age is, let's say, 30, ID is, let's say, J30, and password is, let's say, 123. This is the password. After entering all these detail for the registration, when I click on the submit button, all these data needs to be stored somewhere, right? And that storage place we call database. We call it database. So two concepts we need to understand. This is your GUI and this is your database. Other words we use for this, for the GUI we use front end, and for the database we use the term backend. This is front end and this is backend. And what happens when you click on the submit button, your all the data will be stored in the database. But database is a single, but this database contains tables. Like here we have table, different tables. Like this table is for the registration data. This table contains your friend list. This table contains your feeds. This table may contain your images, like that. So database contains multiple tables, and when you enter any data from the GUI, from the front end, data gets to stored into the table, that particular table. And this link is the connection between the front end and the back end. अभी किसी ने मुझसे पूछा था वो कोडिंग वाला. Who asked that question in at the beginning?
Ma'am, it was me.
Yeah, you asked that coding required, right?
Yeah.
Yes. This is the place where you need coding,
Okay,
right?
ma'am. Yes,
This
ma'am.
is the place where you need a coding to connect your front end and back end. But everybody does not know the coding, right? सबको
Yes.
तो coding आएगा नहीं. So
Yes, ma'am.
without coding, suppose you want to develop an application, very small application I'm talking about. I'm not
Yes,
talking
basic.
about Facebook or no, that not that type of application, but very small application or a small software. Suppose you want to develop without using the coding, you can use MS Access,
Okay, ma'am.
right? And this MS Access contains your front end tools and your back end tools.
Backend
Mm,
tools.
yes. So in MS Access, we are going to learn particular few things like. Few things we are going to learn.
Hmm.
uh, Tables,
Okay.
then forms, reports. These three things we are going to learn. So we will be able to develop a small application without doing the coding,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And all these three things, three interfaces or three features are
Hmm.
connected with each other. Like, see, this is your this is your form, right?
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is your form. This is your table.
Yes.
And when you connect it without coding, we call it together a one application.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood, guys?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone understood?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the concept of MS Access, which we are going MS Access, and we are going to learn all these things. Before we start with the MS Access, let's understand certain few words which we are going to use. Like, as I said, that you will have. Okay, let's start with the tables first. Let's start with the table concept first. So what happens when you create the table? Let's say registration table. Let's consider this table, registration. And for registration we have taken name, age, ID and password. So what happens when you create the table in the database? Let's say this is your table, and first we have name, then we have age, then ID, then password, and many other fields can be there. Now the question is all these fields, we call them field: name, age, ID, password, columns or field. Now the another concept which we need to learn is data type. Data type means what? Have you seen this? Like, if there is a mobile number, if there is an option to enter the mobile number, can you enter ABCD in this text box?
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
No,
No.
ma'am.
If there is a name field, can you enter numbers?
No, ma'am.
No,
No.
ma'am.
Right? It means what? That whenever you are talking about the input, whenever you are talking about the input, all the input data has a data type. Input data has a data type means which type of data you are going to enter. And for that we have different data type. Like, if you have only numbers like 0, 1 till 9, means if you have only numbers, we call them integer. or only numbers. Let's say I'm talking about the characters like A to Z. We call it text. So number is there, text is there. Then let's say it's a date of birth. It's a date of birth. In that case, we have date time data type. So all these are the data types: numbers, text, date time. So depending on the requirement, depending on the data you are going to take from the user, you have to decide the data type. You have to select the data type that we will learn that how to select and how to do that, but you should know the concept of data type. So understood everyone, what is data type?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now just tell me, in mobile number, which data type we will use for mobile?
Numbers.
Integer.
Number,
Integers.
numbers. I have highlighted through the green. Yes, we call it integer, but in access there is a numbers. So for mobile, which data type?
Number.
Numbers. For name,
Text.
text, right? It's very easy. So this is your table. This is your table, and these are the fields. So what happens, guys, when, see here, when you click on this submit button, when you click on this submit button, all this data will be stored in this table, like J, then 30, then J30 and 123, but it will be in the encrypted format. So this is my record number 1. Suppose someone else is registering, then it will add the another record, like let's say Neha, and age is let's say 15, then whatever the ID, whatever, let's say ABC and some password. So when you click on the submit button, all the data will be stored in the table, and this is this table. We have just expanded this. So this is my registration table. Is this clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And now the most important thing. So now what will happen, guys? When you will click on the login button, what will happen? This system or this form, which is actually connected with the database, it will go to the table. It will check that XYZ and this password both are there in this record. Yes, it is there. So if ID and password matched, in that case it will tell to the front end that yes, ID and password both are right. Now you can redirect the user to the next page, and if wrong, in that case reload the same page. This is what happens when your front end and back end interacts with each other. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So this is the concept of tables and forms. We have already seen that this is your form, and your form contains different objects, like many objects are there that we will see during in the next session, in the next lecture. And the reports means what? Let's say that you have created an application for your organization or for your shop. Let's say for your shop. Now you have sales, purchase, inventory, everything is there in your database. All the tables you have, like okay, let me write. Like you have sales table, then purchase table, then inventory, then employee detail, everything, all the tables are there, all the data you have stored. But now let's say I want to create a report like for 2019, in this year XYZ employee, ओके, इन 2019 लेट्स से कोई कोई भी एम्प्लॉय है, उसने कितना सेल किया टोटल. So in that case I can say that I need some filtered data. I need some filtered data from all the records. So when you get the filtered data from all the records, we call them report. So report is something which you generate from your database. Your database contains records, but you don't want all the records. Let's say I have 10,000 rows. I have 10,000 rows in my database, but when I talk about this specific criteria, hardly it will have 10 records, or let's say 100 records. So in that case I need only 10 records, and from 10,000 records, based on some particular criteria, when we fetch the records, some certain particular records, we call it report. Understood, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
For commerce
Ma'am.
people, I can understand that for commerce people it is bit difficult to understand, but this is something which we are going to learn in the MS Access. So I just uh, advise you guys to practice it and do the exercise regularly. Watch the video regularly and do the exercise regularly, whatever I upload. The main reason behind today's session is to explain all this concept, like new words, new terminology and everything. Now if you have any doubt, any query, you can ask me.